Stories about Bruce Lee contain plenty of legends. Some have been exaggerated over the decades, while others come from people who actually witnessed his encounters. But one thing is clear from the surviving accounts: Bruce Lee was not simply interested in looking like a fighter. He wanted to know whether his skills actually worked. Years before he became a worldwide movie star, Lee was already testing himself against experienced martial artists. One of the better-known accounts happened in Seattle in the early 1960s. The challenger was a Japanese karate practitioner, commonly identified in later accounts as Uechi. Bruce was still young. He was not yet the global icon audiences would eventually know. There was no famous movie career protecting his reputation, no legendary status, no Hollywood image, just Bruce Lee. And according to accounts of the encounter, the two men agreed to settle their differences physically. The contrast was striking. The karate practitioner reportedly arrived wearing his martial arts uniform and black belt. Bruce arrived in ordinary clothes. He simply removed his shoes. Then the fight began. What happened next became part of the growing mythology surrounding Bruce Lee. Accounts say the encounter ended extremely quickly, with Bruce overwhelming his opponent with a rapid combination of strikes. The reported duration? Around 11 seconds. But this is where the story needs some caution. The exact details come from retrospective accounts, and there is no surviving film that allows us to independently verify every movement. So the real significance isn't whether every later retelling got every second exactly right. It's what the encounter reveals about Bruce Lee's approach to martial arts. He wasn't obsessed with belonging to one rigid system. He wanted movement to be useful. Fast, direct, adaptable. That idea would eventually become central to Jeet Kune Do, and it explains why Bruce's encounters with other martial artists were so important to him. He didn't simply want people to admire his techniques, he wanted to test them. Years later, Bruce would become famous for demonstrations that left audiences struggling to understand how he generated so much speed and power from such a compact frame. At the 1964 Long Beach International Karate Championships, he demonstrated techniques including his famous one-inch punch. The demonstration helped attract attention from the martial arts world. But Bruce was doing something more important than showing off. He was questioning assumptions. Traditional martial arts often emphasized fixed forms and established systems. Bruce believed the individual should be able to adapt. If an opponent moved differently, you adapt it. If the distance changed, you adapt it. If the situation changed, you adapt it. That philosophy was revolutionary, because Bruce wasn't saying one style automatically defeated another. He was questioning the idea that style alone determined the winner. And that is why stories about Bruce Lee facing karate practitioners remain so fascinating. The real question was never simply, who punches harder? It was, who can adapt faster when the situation stops going according to plan? That question followed Bruce Lee throughout his life. He trained with people from different martial arts backgrounds. He experimented constantly. He studied boxing. He explored fencing principles. He tested footwork, timing, distance, and interception. And he kept refining his ideas. The young man who once wanted to prove himself eventually became someone who wanted to understand combat itself. That distinction matters, because Bruce Lee's greatest advantage may not have been one particular punch or kick. It was his refusal to stop learning. The famous image of Bruce Lee is a man moving impossibly fast, but behind that speed was something much less visible: observation, experimentation, discipline, and the willingness to admit that yesterday's answer might not be tomorrow's answer. Some of the stories surrounding Bruce Lee have grown larger with every retelling. But even after separating legend from documented history, the core story remains extraordinary. A young martial artist entered a world filled with established champions, traditional systems, and people who believed they already knew what fighting should look like. Bruce Lee challenged that thinking. And eventually, the world began paying attention. That may be the real reason his encounters still fascinate audiences today. Bruce Lee didn't become legendary simply because he could fight. He became legendary because he kept asking a question that most fighters never stop to ask: what actually works? And once he found an answer, he tested it again.